Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
I was just jamming out to the intro music and I almost hung up on you guys. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. It is Friday, July 21st.
Yeah, it is.
This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I know, right? I'm doing a solo show. No, I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined over the phone by my co-hosts and co-analysts, CJ the Hitman Hickman and Jason Cabrera. What is up, guys?
No, man. Apparently you're up.
We are off the rails as early as the intro music. That's probably a bad start, but we're going to keep going because we have an amazing show for you guys today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at our 3-team auction mock draft that we did on Tuesday's show. We're going to be bringing you all the top headlines from around the league. Quite a bit to get to, actually, as we're getting into the early parts of training camp. And, we didn't cover any news on last week's show because we had a 3-hour draft to get through. So we'll get there. As always, a bit of bookkeeping. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the show. We are on iTunes and Stitcher and Podcast Addict and YouTube and basically all over the place. Easiest way to get the show, you subscribe and we come right to you, to your pocket. Every time we upload an episode, it's so easy. Just subscribe to the show. Also, if you want to get in touch with us, submit questions, do the works, easiest way to do so on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. That's where we break the news, like some of the articles we're going to be talking about today in the top headlines we already talked about on Twitter. So that's an easy way to get quick, up-to-date information. Going to be very essential during the fantasy football season. You can join the community on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can find the episodes over there as well as articles on the website. We will post over there as well. You can also submit your questions through email to thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. I'm so lazy. I got to set up the dang website emails. This is bad. And of course,
says that every episode you say that.
I always forget about it. I don't know. I always just instinctively go onto Gmail and I answer the questions without ever thinking, oh, well, maybe I should set up the website emails. It's whatever. I'll get there. And of course, if you want to support the show, this is real professional. You guys, they probably stopped listening already. They're like, these guys suck. Turn it off. You can.
Please stick around.
I know, right? Please stick around. We promise it gets better. We are on Patreon at patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. If you want to help us keep the lights on, keep doing what we are doing, and get yourself some really cool bonus perks along the way, discounts on show gear, episodes every single week, bonus episodes, I should say, where we talk about a lot more of these in-depth topics on a regular basis. And we'll during the regular season, we're really tied in on our Tuesday, Friday schedule, where we're talking waiver wire pickups, ad drops, and then starts and sits. That's basically all we have time for with the news. When we get into analysis and trends and thought processes and talking about specific players and all that stuff, we get into all that on the Patreon site. So if you want more of us, if you want a third episode every week, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. I promise you won't regret it. And of course, if you want to go a little bit further without having to spend any money, which, we appreciate the financial support, but this helps us out a ton, and you have a chance to play against us in fantasy football. Remember, our Listener League iTunes Review Challenge is going on right now. If you want to play against us this season, all you have to do, go to iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review, automatically submitted to play against the three of us in fantasy football during the 2017 season. Doesn't have to be a 5-star review, though we greatly appreciate that. As we mentioned, that helps the show out more than we could ever say. And simply at the end of your review, just leave a Twitter handle or an email address, and then we can reach out to you if you are randomly selected to play against us this season. And we're going to be getting to those selections within the next, we've got 3 weeks left. So you've got about 3 weeks to get those reviews in before we're going to be picking the winners and start figuring out the format of this league. And I cannot wait. So with all the bookkeeping covered, I know it's a lot, but we got through it. We're going to move into our warm-up question of the day, which is a pretty simple one. And this is, what is one player that has made the biggest jump for you guys over the last month in your rankings, whether it be up or down? Who wants to go first? I'm throwing it to one of you guys first.
Up or down?
Yeah, either way. Moved up, moved down.
I was only looking at the guys that I moved up.
It just says biggest jump. I didn't specify up. Well, here, CJ, you go first while Jason considers who he wants to talk about.
All right, well, a guy that has been my favorite, man, but when I first started my rankings, I normally like to update them and, keep it what I like to do. After training camps, I get a good feel of everything that's going on in the league. So just an early projection of what my rankings look like. You can see it on the website, thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. Once again, just a shameless plug. But, yeah, man, so Keenan Allen, man, that's my man. I had him at 24. The reason I had him at 24, the injuries, hasn't played a full season, then the additional weapons down there. But now with news coming out talking about Mike Williams, that he's probably going to be having season-ending back surgery, for him. I think his stock goes back up. That was the only
Spoilers,
reason I
CJ.
thought.
Come on, spoilers.
Well, hey man, you probably pay attention to the news. And first of all, we're most likely old on this. I mean, we just get into this, so
Well,
they already know.
though
They already know.
I would contest that, honestly. Mike Williams, spoiler, I'll move into my guy. My guy who's dropped the most is Mike Williams, and he was dropping before the news that we're going to get to in the top headlines, talking about his back surgery that he's requiring. Honestly, I didn't see Mike Williams and Keenan Allen competing with each other. I thought they were very different roles. I thought the main people that Mike Williams really hurt was Tyrell Williams and Hunter Henry. So I think with Mike Williams going down, it's going to give those guys a boost to me. But for me personally, Keenan Allen, I mean, obviously this doesn't hurt him. I will give you that. But
Yeah.
I never saw them as directly competing with each other because I thought they played very different roles in the offense the way it was going to play.
Well, the reason why I brought that up and how you see it, I mean, yes, granted they are different players, but I think that Mike Williams' role would have increased value, like we both thought when he first got drafted there, was in the red zone. Now, before he was there, that was Keenan Allen's role. I mean, Keenan Allen was looked at as that basically like 1A, 1B, with him and then Antonio Gates there. Now with Gates most likely in this upcoming season going to be taking a back seat, that's going to most likely put Keenan Allen up there, and then Hunter Henry going to be most likely the third option. But I think Mike Williams, just because with that size and if you got that chemistry going with Phillip Rivers, I thought that was going to be a boost for him and that he was going to get more red zone touches when it comes down to touchdowns. But now with this injury, I think that everything flips around. So I think Keenan Allen is still number one. Hunter Henry you can put two, and then you can put Terrell Williams maybe three.
True, but and again, we're not trying to get into a debate here. Just this is something we talked about previously. Where, to your point, simply last time that it was that way, Keenan Allen was healthy and he was that big red zone weapon. Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin, they weren't in the offense. Neither was Melvin Gordon, neither was Hunter Henry. So there's all these other guys there that are bigger than him that I think more suit that role. I was kind of assuming Keenan Allen, this is pre-training camp and, seeing the preseason games, was going to fill that short to intermediate role, and those guys are going to be outside red zone, that kind of stuff. So, it remains to be seen.
Same thinking. Same thinking here.
Just a lot of additions since he was the guy there all the way back in the 2015 season. So, so we talked about our two guys pretty seamlessly there. They tied in together. What about you, Jason? Did you make a decision who you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, let's just stay with what I got on there.
Right.
So I did move quite a few players down a couple spots, and as a result, it was kind of shocking a result to me. I just realized I actually raised Paul Perkins from number 18 to number 12 on my rankings.
Wow.
The reason being he's the starting running back for this team. They've added a lot of weapons to that offense that's gonna open up a lot more running lanes for Paul Perkins to run through. He is the undisputed guy there. They've shown a lot of faith in him, And I talk about this a little bit in the new article that I just put out on the fantasyfootballfanatics.com. So you guys can go over and check that out. And what I have to say there is basically the same thing here. Paul Perkins is the guy. They didn't draft anybody until the fourth round when they went out and got Gallman, who is not going to be the starter. They didn't go out in free agency and pick any of the plethora of running backs that was sitting out there waiting. They went with Paul Perkins, and they believe in him. And as I said, I think that the increased number of passing targets is going to open up more running lanes for him. And given he is the undisputed starter, I had to move him up my rankings. So he ended up as a running back one, actually, in my rankings right now.
That just feels. I mean, I'm high on Paul Perkins too, but that's a big jump to have him in your top 12. Man, I'm trying to think.
It's Giants. They're a headache when it comes to projecting them in fantasy.
It's very true.
Absolutely. I think the talent is there, but this might be just like the same situation when there's a guy on our YouTube page. I had a little debate and argument with when Rashad Jennings was there, and he was the featured back there. There was times that they used him, but then there was a lot of weeks where he was stagnant. They just did not use him. They just continue with the passing game, and he was barely involved when it comes to the receiving game from on the backfield. So you have a younger back, a more athletic back in Paul Perkins that can be used. And if the Giants are smart, with Eli's age going up, and one thing that's bad about Eli's passing the ball all the time. There's gonna come times where he's gonna take shots and he gets reckless with that ball, and he starts That's when he starts turning over. So it is very smart for the Giants to get the run game involved and not just pass on the backfield. I see sometimes they like to try to play like the Pittsburgh. I mean, not the Pittsburgh, with the New England, trying to make their rushing yards, receiving yards out of the backfield with the running back. That's not their game. You know what I mean? So if they fix that and start playing the ball, running the ball more traditional, and helping out Eli, then I agree with you. Then I can see your raising on Paul Perkins in your ranking.
Paul Perkins is one of the guys that I still haven't done an in-depth deep dive analysis on. I've statted out most of my guys, and my personal rankings with the stats breakdowns will be available on the website hopefully within the next couple weeks as I wrap that up. And it'll be a living thing like our consensus rankings. I'll be updating that through the offseason, through the draft season. I'm really kind of stuck on him, and it's confusing, like CJ was saying, because I think the opportunity is there. I think that they're not going to be able to stack the line with all the pass catching options that they have there. So I'm definitely, as a show, consensus wise, we are much higher on Paul Perkins than I think the industry as a whole. But I'm just not sure exactly where he lands. So when I finish statting him out and see where that statistically lands him among my rankings, I'll have a better answer. But as of right now, I just looking at my list and where I have him right now, I have a hard time moving him up into my top 12 area where you have him now. So I'm excited to get there. That's half the fun, is getting through all this stuff. But we got to move on. So that was our warm up. Let's go ahead and move into our top headlines from around the league. Quite a bit of news, which is a welcome change of pace as we're getting into the actual season, because top bit of news, guess what? Training camps have begun. A number of teams have already had rookies reported. About a week or so. Every team's got their own schedules, but within the next week, every team will have started at least with their rookies, and veterans are starting to report down the line. So exciting times, guys. Football is almost here. We're going to have a preseason game in the next couple weeks. The offseason's almost over, which on one hand makes me sad because I feel like there's so much more we need to talk about and so little time to do it. But on the other hand, screw that stuff. Let's get to football. That's why we do what we do. So I'm ecstatic. You guys ecstatic? I'm ready for football. Let's do this. And, just to get some clarity, it's been a lot of speculation and a lot of debates and a lot of, well, he did this year and the trends show this and this is what could happen with these transitions of players and coaches. Well, now we get to see it and we get to see how it's all coming together. And, we've seen this every year where players that have a very good situation, they just don't mesh with the offense, with the coordinators, with the team, or vice versa. Players that we don't expect to break out start looking really good in training camp. So a lot of film to be watching in the not too distant future, and I'm excited to get to it. Let's also talk about the fact that the franchise period has ended, and Kirk Cousins and Le'Veon Bell both remained unsigned by the end of the period. They will both be playing in the 2017 season on their franchise tags. Guys, did this surprise you at all? Honestly, this is what I kind of expected.
Yeah, me too. Well, it surprised me with Le'Veon Bell. I thought that was going to get done, but I can see it from Steelers' point of view. Why they didn't go through. I mean, I get that, and I think that Le'Veon is gonna, if he stays healthy this year, he's definitely gonna get paid next year. The Redskins situation, that, oh man, so these dudes, these cats right here, man, they're hilarious. They really are. They and I was talking to a Redskin fan about this a couple of days ago, man. What else does this man Kirk Cousins need to do to prove that he needs to get this money from you? You know what I mean? I mean, well, you had opportunity 2 seasons ago to get this done, but you bluffed. You told that man, hey Kurt, basically, hey Kurt, look, we appreciate you, like everything that you're doing, but we to make that investment, we got to see one more year, one more year. And he goes out there and does that another year, and then what? You're doing this same dance with this franchise tag, but now guess who has the power now? Kirk Cousins has the power. You come out with your little press conference saying, hey, we're disappointed, we're sad. We offered him basically guaranteed $53 million and then an injury clause where it goes up to 70. No, he doesn't want that. Absolutely not. That organization is like a Looney Tunes episode, man, just full of havoc. You don't know what the heck is going on, and you expect this man to sign a multi-year deal with you? Absolutely not. So Kirk Cousins is gonna get this money this year, and then he's out of there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, he turned down a 5-year contract that was having him. He was going to make some pretty good money, but I think it all comes down to the fact that he's going to be. He wants to get to San Francisco.
Yeah, out of there.
Yeah,
out of there. And he has every right. The man brought your team out of obscurity. I mean, look, you were mourning over RG3, and then all of a sudden this dude comes out of nowhere. He's been a thorn in my side as an Eagles fan, and he's been going out there the last 2 years making your team relevant in the NFC East, and you treat this man like this. Oh, you deserve every bit of this pain and anguish you get in this season.
Wow. No, Not bitter at all, coming from the resident
No,
NFC
that
East
is absolute truth. That is absolute truth, man. Come on, that is a terrible organization.
$53 million guaranteed, though. That's nothing to bat an eye at. But yeah, I mean, it all comes down to exactly like we're saying. We think he wants out, and hey, if he gets franchise tagged for a 3rd year, he's going to be making a stupid amount of money, more money than he would make on any contract. So we'll see how it goes.
Heard him, Kurt.
Yeah, even if he has a terrible season, he's still going to get a contract somewhere else probably after that. So, Kirk Cousins, he's making that money. Yeah, and I agree. It didn't surprise me because I think he's trying to get out of Washington. I think he's saying all the right things and trying to be politically correct, but unless they blow the doors off him, he's trying to say, I just couldn't land on it. I needed more time because I just, there's so much change this offseason. I'm not sure the direction that we're going. That seems like a lot of like how we talk about coach speak. This is very political talk from him. Le'Veon Bell, on the other hand, surprising. But on the other side, I really am not surprised because you saw all the reports saying he wanted to be paid as the number 1 running back and a number 2 wide receiver. So I mean,
wow.
Yeah, that's
it's tough.
Which is what he is on that team, and he is one of the top elite running backs in the league, and he did have the 2nd most receptions in all for his team and yards and over the course of the last couple of years. But you have to weigh that against the injuries and the suspensions and the fact there's a cap that you have to stay underneath. So. Not surprised, and whether there's a holdout or whether he ends up taking his time coming back to camp because. This just gives the team a really good chance to take a look at James Conner, who they drafted this year, which they are very high on. And who knows, maybe if James Conner blows the doors off the team, maybe they keep him and they let Le'Veon walk. I don't see it happening, but it's possible.
I mean, they've done it before.
Yeah,
they've done it before.
They have.
A guy named Mike. What was it? Mike Wallace. That plays for you guys now. Yeah, Mike Wallace.
Yep, they did that with Mike Wallace.
And they got up out of there, and all of a sudden, here comes Antonio Brown. They've done it before.
Well, we had flashes of Antonio, but yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying. But we've spent way too much time on this one thing. Let's move on. Let's go to some quarterback news, where Chicago has announced, this is beat writers confirming that this is what they've heard, that they expect Mike Glennon to remain the starter for the entirety of the 2017 season. So, I'm not surprised. He's basically on a 1-year contract. They have outs afterwards, and this gives them a chance to develop the young rookie. So, did this surprise you guys at all?
No. Come on now. You know that rookie out there. Stop that.
I mean, and I honestly, who's to say like they're getting to the end of the season and he is being as bad as I honestly expect him to be, and Mitchell Trubisky's there and he's been looking good in training and in practice, and throw him out there, see what he's got, get some real world experience when they're probably mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
And I like it because it gives them a chance to see a full sample size of Mike Glennon before they make that decision to move on. And they're not gonna do that. Now here's the thing, though.
They
have not stepped.
Go ahead.
They have not stepped foot into training camp just yet. They have not actually started training camp, so we don't know that that's going to be the case. If Mike Glennon goes into training camp and stinks up the place, then we could see Trubisky walk in there as the starter. So it's wonderful for them to say they expect Glennon to start throughout the season, but I expect a lot of things to happen throughout the season, and maybe half of them will.
Yeah.
You telling me you're gonna start a boy that only played 13 games in college, bro? For real? You gonna start that kid?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have drafted him as high as they drafted him. I wouldn't have traded up and given away half my draft pick.
Traded
pick up a guy
to the number 2 overall pick to draft this guy.
Freaking spot.
One spot
they traded up to get this guy. They gave up their draft to get him, basically. So there's a lot of things that Chicago did that I wouldn't do.
And maybe that's why Chicago's in the situation they're in. Sorry, any Bears fans out there, but it's
what's up.
This is what the whole world is seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it too. I've talked to many a Bears fan that is, like many Redskins fans that CJ has mentioned in the past, are just so frustrated with this team. We expect John Fox to probably be on the way out, and probably management with him. So we'll see. There are some hot seats in Chicago right now, and this is going to be a very interesting year. But again, Mike Glennon, he is basically on a 1-year deal. They can cut him after this season for only a $4.5 million dead cap. Insane contract work by the head office there. So maybe some signs of some cunningness from the Chicago Bears front office. Let's move on, though, to some running back news, where now this is kind of old news, but some new news has broken. Ezekiel Elliott was at a club in Dallas, I believe it was, where there was a fight that broke up at a nightclub, and he was he was not charged. There was no arrest being made, but this is going on in lieu of the potential suspension coming down from the domestic abuse situation, and then there was other instances that have happened since then. So this is actually his third instance that has involved police attendance since he was, not since he was drafted, because the domestic violence happened before that, but you get my meaning. So this was just bad timing, but new news broke out that the investigation for the brawl has been suspended, citing inconsistencies and lack of prosecution, things of that nature. So nothing official is heading his way, but who's to say this won't weigh in on the NFL's decision-making down the line? Because many people are starting to suspect a suspension is coming. There's been a lot more mumbles and a lot more smoke. So, we've mentioned Ezekiel Elliott potential suspension and how many games would affect his moving in our rankings. So if you guys are drafting really early, holy crap, be aware, because domestic violence with the new agreement, I believe, is 6 or 8 games, automatic. But I don't know if they'll do the full thing since he was not actually arrested or there was no official charges. What are your guys' thoughts here?
I think that,
man.
Wow.
This dude needs to go home and needs to binge watch something on Netflix. He needs to stop going out to clubs and stop going out. You're going to give up millions and millions of dollars of your contract.
There's good shows on TV.
You're going to end up being, you're going to be gone. He's going to be gone. And he needs to stop it. And I know he's been told. And Arians, if you watch the first season of All or Nothing, Arians loves to say to people before they go on break, "Don't be that guy. Yep. Don't be the guy they're talking about. Don't be the guy that I have to go bail out. Don't be that guy."
Don't.
And right now Ezekiel Elliott is not hearing it. So he needs to take this as a blessing and take his butt home and watch some Netflix or something.
I just finished Westworld. I know I'm a little bit late on that, but man, that
I've
got
never
crazy
seen it,
towards
so.
the end. No spoilers, just saying that was a slow show to begin, but it got really crazy towards the end. Moving on.
I'll have to check it out.
Arizona running back David Johnson, we all know David. He reiterated on Sirius XM NFL radio that he wants to handle 30-plus touches a game this season. So this is, of course, fantasy greatness that this is what we want to hear. We've heard this from Bruce Arians. Now we're hearing it from David Johnson. Further solidifying to all of us. Yeah, exactly. Further solidifying to all of us that he should be the number 1 overall pick. I think that, this is just good news. This is what we want to hear. Agreed? Agreed. All right.
It's a little bit of a smokescreen. I hear what they're saying, and I, of all people, love to see David Johnson with the football in his hands. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a bit more balanced than it was last year. That's what they want. They want the ball going down the field in the air more often. So as great as that sounds, take it with a grain of salt, because Bruce Arians does one thing really, really well in the offseason, and that is lie through his team.
No. Okay, let's break this down since you're going there, Jason. In reality, that is an unsustainable workload. You can't handle 30 touches a game without breaking down. I don't care. David Johnson is a younger guy. I get that. And Bruce Arians loves to run his young backs into the ground. I get all of that, but it's an unsustainable pace. He will not reach 30 touches a game. But to know that they have in their schemes that they want to try and get him close to that many touches, that is great, considering you have guys like Lamar Miller who struggle to get double-digit touches at times in previous seasons. So...
Right, and the fact that they just went out and spoiler alert for the next headline, they just went out and re-signed Chris Johnson as the backup.
Moving right along.
Moving right along, shows you that they want to keep a balanced game, and they don't want Johnson to get hurt, because right now he is the linchpin of that offense. He does get a lot of touches. He may not get 30 touches every single game, but he gets a lot of touches, and they are going to make a push for 1,000 yards rushing and receiving this year. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, fantastic news. Don't expect it to actually happen.
No, I mean, in reality, in my rankings, I actually have him getting less receptions and less rushing attempts than last year. But it's still great news. That's what we want to hear. So, yes,
right.
The Arizona Cardinals did re-sign running back Chris Johnson, adding depth for the 2017 season. It's always good to have quality depth, especially if you're going to run someone into the ground. Let's see.
Right.
The Austin American-Statesman reports that Houston Texans third-round rookie running back Deonta Foreman was arrested for marijuana possession and unlawful carrying of a weapon in Austin early Sunday morning. So again, a little late to the here, but yeah, I mean, a guy who was being kind of anointed as the backup to Lamar Miller now is going to be facing possibly legal ramifications, definitely a suspension from the league. So missing time, I think that he's going to be struggling to get time on the field. Honestly, this news was a boost to me for Lamar Miller. I made some minor adjustments in his rankings where I gave him an extra touchdown, and I only gave him like another 40, 50 yards, and it was enough to give him a sizable bump well into the back end of my running back ones, towards the middle of the running back one tier. So I have to probably tweak it a little bit, but I mean, I'm now that much higher on Lamar Miller after hearing this news. Does this affect your guys' rankings? I mean, obviously, anyone who was high on Deonta Foreman has to take this directly into account.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I hate hearing stuff like this. Like, come on, man. Be smart, man. I understand you might like that tree, but dog, come on, man. You understand you're a football player now. You're in the National Football League. You got a responsibility to your family.
And a future role model, potentially.
And I mean, you can't be doing stuff like this. You can't let that pleasure just control your life when it comes to that. So this is tough. It's sad to hear that, man. And but as far as football goes, fantasy football goes, Lamar Miller, I was still high on him regardless. I know we talked about this a little bit in our last show when we were doing auction, waiting for picks. But I don't really feel like we got a real true sample size of him just because of the quarterback situation.
He was facing stacked fronts all game, every game, and he was playing through injury last year. I mean, I'm not like projecting him to be, one of those top 3 running backs, but I mean, I think that he has now the workload to back up the upside of him to make a legitimate argument to have him as a running back one. I mean, where in your rankings, that remains to be seen. But the biggest fear for me, and I know a lot of other analysts out there, was the potential loss of touches to a Deonta Foreman. And now I think this will directly affect that upside for him. And I think this gives a big boost to Lamar, like we've been saying. So let's move on. In Green Bay, the running back coach, Ben Sirmans, I think is how you say his name, he said that the 4th round rookie running back Jamal Williams will open training camp as the number 2 running back on the depth chart. So, for starters, I say duh. Second off, this is just adding much more value and solidifying our view as a show on the value of Jamal Williams as a late-round sleeper. I mean, this is a guy that we draft every time we do a mock draft. I drafted him in our auction draft where we did that. Spoiler, when we get into our review coming up. What are you guys' thoughts here? I don't think this changed anything. We all expected this.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the kind of guy, like I said, I think I said this during our draft, he's the kind of guy that you want carrying the rock the first 2 downs, and really would rather have Ty Montgomery being more of that slasher, being more of that 3rd down, change of pace back.
Yep.
So this is a good step. He's a rook, so you don't expect him to go, he is now the starter immediately. He's going to go in as the number 2. I think that's excellent. Ty Montgomery is likely to get injured. It's happened every season pretty much.
And if he doesn't pick up the blitz coverage and pass protection, he's going to come off the field, and Jamal Williams will be on that much more. That was a big knock against him last year. Even when healthy, he wasn't on the field much.
Right, exactly. All these things weigh into that. The fact that you should be very high on Jamal Williams. This is a guy that is going to get an opportunity in Green Bay, and I think he's going to make the most of it. This guy's very talented.
Yeah, we say don't pick up handcuffs generally as a concept for the show because that's kind of wasting a roster spot. Those are the first guys you're going to cut when it comes to injuries and bye weeks and things like that. But an upside of Jamal Williams, where Ty Montgomery is most likely inevitably going to get, like we said, injured, or he might fall behind on the depth chart or whatever the case may be. Jamal Williams, you could be drafting in double-digit rounds a guy who will be a starting running back for a high-powered offense. Yep. We saw what Eddie Lacy could do there when healthy, and Jamal Williams fits that exact build of Eddie Lacy. And we're talking about in-shape Eddie Lacy, not cheeseburger Eddie. So, we're all very high on Jamal Williams. I mean, it's going to have to play out. I wouldn't, unless crazy things happen in training camp and injuries happen all the time in training camps. Our entire top headlines probably within a week or so is going to have a couple season-ending injuries in it every single episode. It's just what happens. Guys aren't in shape, and as they're getting in shape, injuries happen. There's more injuries in training camp, I feel like, than there are in the main season. So, it's something to watch, and who knows, maybe he moves up that depth chart. But as of now, we're talking double digits for a guy who could be a starting running back for your team. So a guy to watch. And there's a couple guys like this that we've talked about in the past, and we will continue to talk about a lot more as we move into draft season. Let's move on to some wide receiver news, though. San Diego Chargers first-round rookie wide receiver Mike Williams will most likely have season-ending back surgery. He's already had, I heard a report saying he's had one epidural. He's going to be getting another one to see if he can play through the injury, but most likely, most doctors and a lot of, basically everything is pointing to the fact that he will most likely require a herniated disc surgery, which will probably cost him his rookie season. So,
Griffin, why you keep doing that to them, man? It's the L.A. Chargers, not saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why you keep doing that to them, man? You just keep putting that knife in them, man.
The pitchfork.
Oh man, here come the pitchforks. Yep. I even typed it in the show doc at San Diego. Oh man, this is bad. Thank you, CJ. Oh, yeah. So, because they never should have left. They're going to be playing in a stadium that only sits 20,000 fans. It's so dumb. Okay, regardless. So
they want an intimate setting.
They're going to get it. They're going to be taking that time to build up that fan base.
Really intimate.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
it'll be really intimate.
So I don't think we really need to dive in too much on the impacts of the Chargers here because we already talked about that quite a bit during our warm-up. So gives a bump to your Tyrell Williams, a huge bump to him, I think. I think this gives a bump to the pass-catching tight ends in the red zone. And to me personally, I think Keenan Allen, I don't think this affects him much one way or another. But, everybody has their own take. You guys want to add anything? Or you want to keep moving?
Keep moving. Man.
Keep moving.
All right. Green Bay wide receiver Geronimo Allison has been suspended for one game for violating the NFL substance abuse policy. So, sad to see, but he wasn't going to be on the field much anyway. He was 4th or 5th on the depth chart, depending on who you talk to. So that's something. Unless you're in super, super deep leagues, you're probably not drafting him. Let's move on to some tight end news. This could be exciting. Gary Barnidge is set to visit with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he would be a really nifty fit in the Julius Thomas role that has been voided, a pass-catching red zone threat, which honestly will make me sad for your Allen Robinsons of the world, but good for that Jacksonville offense. Do you guys think this would be as good of a fit as I do?
I think anything besides him wrestling with TNA is great. So
that's fair.
This is what it is. Please start playing football again.
I'll agree with that statement. And let's move on to some other news where the Carolina Panthers fired general manager Dave Gettleman. Now, this seems like it was not a surprise within the actual facility, though to us on the outside looking in, pretty surprising. This is a guy who, you know how they say that there are like players, coaches, and some people would say maybe there's players, GMs that have their back. This is a guy who honestly, he came into a bad situation. They were really tight against the cap. He's the one that made a lot of really tough decisions, like the cutting of Steve Smith Sr., the not re-signing Josh Norman, things of that, letting big-name players from the franchise walk. And apparently the final straw, at least this is what I've been hearing, was that he was not on board to re-sign Greg Olsen. And, so apparently they decided to cut ways.
Right?
Wow.
Yes. He came into a really terrible cap situation. He really turned that team around. So on one hand, he really did his job, but a lot of players and coaches and inside sources are saying that he's one of those guys that's like, this is my team and it's going to be my way or no way, and he didn't want to have any give or take. So butting of heads probably led to this. So a guy who really did a really good job, honestly, now looking for a job. So did you guys hear anything in addition to this you wanted to add?
No,
I think he's going to be picked up. I think he won't be out of the job for long.
Yeah. You should go to the Jets. They need
Yes.
some guidance there.
There will be openings soon in a number of teams, and they need someone to make those hard decisions. So I mean, there are plenty of teams out there that are infamous for cutting guys while still in their prime because they see the end is near. I mean, look at the Patriots, for instance. They're infamous for doing this, cutting guys that people are like, really, they're going to let that guy go, but they are good at finding value. I'm not saying he was the best drafter or he was the best team builder, but he was really doing a very good job of getting that cap situation under control. So. Interesting news, but we move on. Let's move into a review. So we'll talk a little bit of reviews before we get into our topic of the day. And we have a review in from iTunes. Jason, I'm going to throw this to you. Read this review.
Oh, of course.
Read it.
Right as I scroll down.
Ha-ha!
Okay.
Caught you off guard.
It's a 5-star review from Chris Schapper.
The only
Shaper?
His name is Chris
Schapper?
Schapper from iTunes. It says, highly recommend. Great show. Tons of info and analysis.
Woo!
Well
Thank
stated,
you,
Chris.
Chris.
Well
We
stated.
greatly
Thank you.
appreciate
And
the
knowledge.
feedback. Yeah, and knowledge. We like long reviews because we like to stroke the ego here, but I mean, greatly appreciate the feedback. Helps us out a ton. And now he is automatically entered to possibly be selected to play against us in fantasy football this year. So, welcome to the pool, Chris. So with that, now that we've done our review, let's move into our topic of the day, which is our 3-team auction draft recap and review. Now, so unless you were on the Patreon with us, you probably don't know what our teams ended up looking like. So we're going to run through them very quickly. My team ended up being, at my starting quarterback, I have Andrew Luck. At running back, I have Lamar Miller and Leonard Fournette. At wide receiver, Jordy Nelson and Allen Robinson. In my flex, I have Jason's Paul Perkins. At tight end, I have Rob Gronkowski. Kicker, Brian McManus, Baltimore Ravens defense. On my bench, I have Adrian Peterson, Jamal Williams, who we were just talking about. I have Brandon Marshall. Yeah, I'm losing it. Dante Moncrief, Jeremy Maclin, and I have O.J. Howard.
What a smart man.
That
What
didn't
a
go well.
smart man. Get a
Griffin
back
drafted
up
OJ.
plan like you did. Look at you. Look how smart you are.
So I don't remember if that actually happened on the show or not. I don't think it did.
You're catching the juice.
It did.
Did it? Yeah, I don't remember.
I believe it did.
I think it happened after the show.
No, it didn't. It didn't. It happened later. Yeah.
Yeah. I nominated O.J. Howard because I wanted to see what he would go for, and then I guess everyone's really smart. They didn't bid on him, so he ended up being stuck with me.
No, that's not what it was. We put it in the chat room. Nobody put a bid on him. This is an inside thing.
No. So, he'll be my first player if this was a real team. I'd be dropping him as soon as waivers cleared to start ad dropping because I have no desire to have O.J. Howard, especially when I have Rob Gronkowski. The beautiful thing about that team, a lot of people are saying, how? Well, it was an auction draft. Almost every single one of my starters is anywhere from a first to a fourth round pick, and that's what you can do in an auction league. And we'll dive into that a lot more moving on. CJ, why don't you recap your team?
All right, my starting quarterback is Jameis Winston. My starting running backs are Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon. Starting wide receivers, Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant. In my flex, I have Jarvis Landry.
Jarvis Landry.
Except for Jarvis Landry. I just call him Juice. My bad.
Javaris.
Tight end is Zach Ertz. My kicker is Dan Bailey. My defense is Texans. And on my bench, I have Doug Martin, LeGarrette Blount, Samaje Perine, Keenan Allen, Willie Snead, and Tyler Eifert.
Why did you capitalize Dan Bailey's name?
Yeah.
Dan Bailey!
The man is money.
That's weird.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jason.
that is a little weird. All right. So my quarterback ended up being Marcus Mariota. My running backs were Isaiah Crowell and Marshawn Lynch. My wide receivers are Michael Thomas and Doug Baldwin. In the flex position, I originally drafted Michael Crabtree, but I actually moved Frank Gore into that position. I like having running backs in my flex. So Frank Gore is my flex. Kyle Rudolph is my tight end. Justin Tucker is my kicker. The Denver Broncos is my defense. And then, of course, like I said, on my bench, I got Michael Crabtree, Joe Williams, Kareem Hunt, Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown, and Josh Doxson rounding out my bench.
There you go. So, right off the bat, I want to talk about our teams very quickly. And like I said with my team, all of my starters were first through sixth round because Paul Perkins in my flex was a sixth round. I could put Adrian Peterson there as a fourth round. So my entire starting lineup was second through fourth, honestly. I didn't have any first round players. But, that's the thing. If you pay for a first round guy in an auction draft, you automatically have overspent almost entirely. Because if you looked at the other teams in this draft, a lot of guys went out there and they got two, number one, first round, if this was a standard snake draft tier guys, and then every single one of their guys after that were double-digit players. And that's because that's the way it works in auction drafts. You can pull the trigger on those guys. If you want them, you can go get them, but your team is going to look pretty suspect. I would honestly, I say my team is very stacked. I love my team. I've got 2 second-round running backs. I've got a second and borderline third-round wide receiver there. Honestly, I think Jordy Nelson should be a first-round. As we talked about in the draft, I have him as a top 3 wide receiver for me. And then, a lot of quality depth I was able to build throughout my team. And the vast majority of these guys, if you wait, they will fall through the cracks. I was able to get most of these guys at a value underneath what is even their average auction value. What about you guys? What were the instant takeaways from your teams? And I mean, we all were pretty good about looking for values and value shopping. None of us were overly aggressive except for maybe 1 or 2 players on our rosters.
Yeah, that's one thing I would say. I mean, just like you said, the first round talent you're gonna have to pay, and I end up, having to pay $57 for Antonio Brown. His average draft position in auction is going like 42. So I spent a little much. I spent a little much on that, but that's my dude. I had to go get him. But everybody else on my that I got on my team, I felt really good about it. Just like you said, I didn't really push on anybody really that much.
Where did you find your auction value, CJ? Because where I'm looking, and what I through my notes was more accurate, was that he was going for $63 on average.
Oh, 63. Well, I got mine's off the site. Give me a second. I'll pull it back up.
I found my average values from a mixture between NFL.com, Fantasy Pros, and a couple other sites to come up with my average value. So I'm just curious where you pulled yours directly from. While you
got mine's off a site called Scout Fantasy.
Okay, that's a good one too. I guess they're a little bit more conservative over there. All right, Jason, what about you? And we'll have our own auction values up on our site soon as we finalize our rankings, but just for the time being. Jason, how about you?
Yep. I'm pretty happy with my team. I ended up with 2 running backs that I'm very high on this year, and that actually the rest of the industry isn't necessarily as high on. So that's kind of how I expected it to go with Isaiah Crowell and Marshawn Lynch. If you look at Crowell's only going on average at $24. I got him at $32, so a bit higher than what a lot of people are projecting. And then Marshawn Lynch, I got him for $34, and he's going at $30 right now. So he's starting to creep up in people's rankings as people start to realize that line he's running behind, that offense that he's in. But still, I was very happy with spending $66 on both of my starting running backs. I thought that was excellent value.
Instead of going up over 70 for David Johnson.
To go get David Johnson. Right. Which, to be honest with you, that's my guy, David Johnson. 70 was a bit rich for my blood with a $200 limit.
Yeah.
But as much as I love David Johnson, he's only one player, and I can score more with 2 players.
In a real league with actual players playing with actual money, he'll never go that high, though. And with anyone who knows what they're doing, no one's going to spend that much. His average value is considerably less than that. Of course.
I'm also pretty happy with my wide receivers. I mean, I got Michael Thomas. That was the most money I spent. I spent $47, which, if you look at the values, he was actually the highest valued player as well at $38 on average. So I did pretty good as far as that goes. And then Doug Baldwin I got for $30, and his average value was $31. So again, very good value. Frank Gore in my flex, I got him for $6. He's going for $17. So overall, I felt really, really good. And then Crabtree, I got for $21. He's going for $23. So overall, like you said, I didn't force anything. There wasn't any single player that I just felt I had to have and would spend anything for. I was able to kind of parse out the amount of money that I wanted to spend. And then if you look at my bench, I got a lot of high ceiling players there, a couple of high floor players, and I got most of them for $1. I got Joe Williams for $1, Kareem Hunt for $1. I got John Brown for $1, Josh Doxson for $1. Larry Fitzgerald I got for $3, and he's going for $15 on average. So overall, I thought I love my team. I would be absolutely ecstatic going into the season with this team.
Yeah, I mean, I like all of our teams, honestly. And if we looked across the draft, these were the only 3 teams that I actually liked. I looked at all the other teams, and they had shining positions, but as a whole, their teams were a pretty crazy mess of like, wow, you clearly ran out of money very early on. In fact, I love all of our benches. If you break down our benches, I don't think we overpaid for a single depth player. I mean, most of my entire bench I was able to get for $1 to $2, and most of them were going anywhere from like $8 to $15 range. So I mean, I love my bench. I have great quality depth. I have top tier starters. I mean, again, I was able to get Andrew Luck, who's going in the 4th round, as the number 4 quarterback off the board. I put the number there because, rankings and draft philosophy on these players is subjective, so I did that for quarterback and tight end. So the 4th quarterback taken off the board in standard snake draft leagues, got him, for $14. That's what he was going for. Lamar Miller and Leonard Fournette both going as 2nd-round running backs. I was able to get them both. So that's great quality there. And I did not pay up for David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Ezekiel Elliott, and I was able to save a lot of money for that. Probably overpaid for Jordy Nelson. I got him for $51, where his average is $45. But honestly, a 2nd-round wide receiver who in some leagues and some sites is going as a 1st-round wide receiver, and in my personal rankings, I have higher than that. For $51, where most of those top-tier guys usually go closer to $60, I think that was great value. Allen Robinson, I got for a steal for $19. I'm expecting him to be a post-type sleeper and a bounce-back candidate this year. Paul Perkins, we're all high on, and I got him at value. He's currently going for $15. That's what I spent on him. Gronk was the one thing I wish I hadn't done, which is why we mock. No, don't get me wrong. I got him for good value. I got him for $30, which on average he's going for 28 rather. So I paid roughly what he goes for.
Not bad.
But, me, I'm a late-round tight end guy. I would much rather get one or two of these really late guys I could have spent $1 on and had another, or $2 and had another $28 to spend to buff up my wide receivers or my running backs. But because we were in a draft with a bunch of people who seemed to be completely new at auction-style drafting, we were able to just kind of cherry-pick the guys that we liked for our benches, and our benches are pretty darn stacked as it is. So, I mean, I could have spent it, I'm sure, elsewhere to get upgrades. Not exactly sure where. It would have had to come down to the draft itself, because I did draft Gronk pretty early on. Maybe gotten a more elite running back, but probably not. I don't know. Who knows? That's why we mock. And then all the bench, like I said, got at amazing discounts. $1 on everyone except for Moncrief, who I spent $2 on. But big deal, because he's going on average for $9. So still great savings. I mean, did all three of us end the draft with money in our pockets? We all ended without spending everything. Yep. So
yeah, I had some money left.
So we kind of recapped our teams pretty good. CJ, did you want to add anything else before we move on to some things we learned about the draft?
I actually had a question for you guys.
Go for it.
Because I read one of our comments on YouTube after we did the show with the auction, man. A guy that basically said that, he basically agrees and does the strategy that we have. I guess you can call it value shopping, or just
being smart with your money.
Yeah, being smart,
being disciplined,
just being seasoned enough in auction.
Right.
But he said that he's basically done that style in the last couple of years. It's got him to the chip, basically the championship, but he's yet to win. So, he was saying maybe that this year, he might go in a lot more like we saw in the draft, those big names, spend a little more money, to be able to switch it up. Now, I agree with them. Sometimes I said, if the definition of sanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different. So, maybe you do have to switch it up. But I wouldn't go to the extreme where what we saw in the draft, where you saw a bunch of people that looked like they didn't know what they're doing. Plus, you got a lot of people that were just attracted to names. They were just attracted to those big names, and they just splurged everything. And then those, like when it comes to our benches, those late rounds where we got to be able to capitalize, they just basically got to just sit back and watch everything happen. If they didn't spend that much money, they could be able to get involved like we were and be able to capitalize on that. So it's I was just want to say, to me, it's kind of it's just up and down. Like I can see his thinking, but then other one I can see ours. So I just wanted to put that to you guys.
Dropping a random question on us unexpectedly. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, what I was going to say was, if this guy's getting to the championship regularly, and if he's dominating the regular season, that's really great.
Yeah.
And when you get to the championship, your team shouldn't look like it does when you drafted it. You got to get on the waiver wire. You're going to have to change out some players. You're going to have to move some stuff around. So I would say if you get to the championship, regularly, like I've been to the championship the last 2 years, You think I'm going to change my strategy? Heck no. My strategy is working. I'm getting to the championship. If I don't win the championship, that's just one game. And one thing changes and you win the championship. You put the right person in the right spot at the right time, you win the championship. So getting to the championship is what you need to focus on. And if it's getting you there, don't change up your entire strategy, because guess what? You may not even get close to the championship this next year.
Yeah.
So if you've got a strategy and it's working and it's getting you to the championship, you keep doing that, in my opinion. You don't change it up and try to, and it's like a team that keeps getting to the NFC Championship game or keeps getting to the Super Bowl every year, and then they decide, oh, this isn't good enough, so we're going to completely revamp our entire team.
Let's blow it up.
You don't do that. You tweak it. You change one player. You go, you know what? I draft this player every year, and he's fine, but at the end of the year, he starts to dip. Maybe draft a different player, or maybe halfway through the season, you trade him or drop him or something. So he should be tweaking what he's doing during the season. Don't change your drafting philosophy. Clearly, if you're getting to the championship, it's working.
Yeah, Jason basically took the words out of my mouth, and this goes out to Corey Orman, I think is how you say his name, on YouTube again, so appreciate the question. And, I completely agree. If you have something that is working for you, there's no reason to change that. Clearly, that's a success, but it comes down to any given Sunday, and your team should be ever evolving. You're doing waiver wire ad dropping. You should be trading, and sometimes it comes down to recognizing the playoff matchups and the playoff stretch, and trying to really get those guys who have the favorable schedule. And who knows? Like, I had the highest scoring team on an average basis the last couple years, and that's great consistency for me. But maybe you need that higher ceiling team to beat the team in the championship. It comes down to it's week to week, matchup to matchup, and then obviously the matchups of your individual players. And if it looks bad, if you don't have a trade deadline, try to make some moves. Try to trade. If you're making the playoffs, try to acquire a more favorable playoff schedule. Make tweaks during the season. But if it's clearly working for you, getting you to the playoffs, clearly your strategy is working. And don't get me wrong, people do draft the opposite way. They like to get their studs, and they have faith in their waiver wire abilities and their late round sleepers and all that stuff. If you believe you can do that, go for it. But if you're having great success here, I see no reason to change that. It all just comes down to prepping for the postseason. But we got to move on. So hopefully that's helpful. So let's talk about some stuff we learned about this draft really fast. We're already almost out of time. Where does the time go? As we kind of mentioned already, the effects of the draft strategies, we were patient. We let a lot of the elite guys go off the board, and then we were able to pick crazy good depth across the board. All of our teams really good. We have very few players who are double-digit rounds. In fact, I only see 2 on Jason's team. I only see 2 on mine. And CJ, you had 2 on yours, and all of those were sleeper picks. So they were upside plays. So, I mean, if you're smart about it, it works good. And that's because we were disciplined. We stuck to our rankings. We stuck to our beliefs and the values, and we didn't overspend. And that's what it kind of came down to. And we were all very smart and conscious, and this is because we're veteran fantasy players. We weren't afraid to walk away from a player that was getting too high.
Oh, yeah.
Because it happens. People are going to bid you up. And you have to know, okay, this is the max I put. This is the value I assign to this player. It's now $6, $7, $8 above that. Sometimes you have to walk away. There's going to be other good players out there, and you're going to be thankful you saved that money in the long run. And there's always trading down the line to acquire these players. Let that huge hit to their budget go to somebody else. And also with that, you also have to recognize when people are just simply trying to bid you up, because it will happen, especially if you play in a league with friends and family. Man. The people will price and force. I'm notorious for this. When I see a guy going for drastically less than he should be, I'll bid on a player that I don't even want just because I'm like, no, there's no way you're getting this player for this cheap. I'll get him for cheap and then trade him. So it's knowing your values, recognizing it, sticking to it, and just remembering and knowing that the players will fall through the cracks. A lot of these guys that we're talking about, a second, third, fourth round guys like Paul Perkins, Adrian Peterson, Brandon Marshall, all 4th and 5th round players, Jeremy Maclin, Deontay Moncrief, all players on my team. I got these guys past these 2-hour mark in our draft. So, you get these guys late. What about you guys? What did you guys take away from the draft?
I agree with you. I mean, for me personally, I saw that we both stayed disciplined, man. Another thing, even though we went into this kind of blatantly blind, I still had my same, strategy, my same mindset going into the draft. I have my guys that I like, and then I have my guys that I want to bid up because I want to get everybody's money low. So I mean, that's just me. That's my style, and that it just helps me out so I can be able to get people that I want later on in the draft and be able to have good money to be able to do that and not be. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I thought there was one time last year in our draft that I thought this was good. This is like in the like 5 hour mark, and I think this is good enough to bring this player up.
For reference, our league of record is a very. If you haven't been following us, you're new to the show. Welcome for starters. Hi, but our big league of record is an auction draft where we have extended benches, full 11-man IDP that works. So that draft is about 8 hours. Your typical auction draft will go 2.5 to maybe 3. Just so you guys have some perspective. Go ahead, CJ.
Right. So I put it out there. I'm thinking it's way enough. Maybe this is good. I got money to spend. This is great. I go put out Marcus Mariota. I'm thinking that I'm about to get this dude for $5. I end up paying $15. That was way too soon to bring him out there. That's another name, just like Griffin was saying, the names that can slip through the cracks. You purposely have those names slip through the cracks that you want later on, so you don't have to spend as much as them trying to bid you up. Because if they are already spent most of their money up, they only can go up only so much. You know what I mean? But if you bring them out earlier, then it's going to get a little crazy. Then you're going to get frustrated. You're going to be pulling some hair. You might not have hair. You might be pulling skin particles. I'm just saying, just to be able to save you time.
Yep.
Save you time and add less.
Yeah, right. And to your point, generally your savvy veteran auction players will not nominate players they actually want. You want to let the guys you want slip as far as possible and then bid on them when someone else brings them up, because hopefully, well, obviously that's as far as they were getting in that draft because they've been nominated. So, the later it is, the less money people have, and if you've been waiting, the more money you hopefully have that you can get these guys and keep on rolling and save money in the process. Jason, how about you? What did you take away from this draft?
Well, one thing you didn't mention that's on your notes here, and I'll go ahead and mention it because it happened to me too. Nominating people you don't want, you need to know when to stop doing that, because there does come a point in the draft where you don't want to do that anymore, or you end up with O.J. Howard on your bench.
Yeah, well.
Or in my case, it actually worked out okay for me. I nominated Marcus Mariota, and we're talking about Marcus Mariota a lot suddenly.
Funny how that works out.
Because I wanted to see, I wanted to see where he would go, in the draft. He ended up coming to me for $1. Nobody bid on him, and that's my 8th ranked quarterback. So I'm fine taking my quarterback for $1. That's completely fine. But if I had picked somebody I really did, if I had gone out, I'm gonna put Brock Osweiler out there and see who puts money down on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's just stupid, because guess what? I'm gonna end up with Brock Osweiler on my team.
Right.
Well, that comes down to also keeping an eye on the needs of the rest of the players in your league.
Absolutely right.
If a lot of players need a quarterback, they're more likely to bid on a quarterback.
Yeah,
right. Don't try to outsmart yourself.
You got league mates that want to leave and go to comic book store. Then you can get them to get Brock Osweiler.
Wow. Shots fired.
That actually happened in our
couple years ago.
League of Record.
Yeah.
Well,
the guy was down to $1 bid, so he couldn't pick players anymore. So he left for a while.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend that.
So here's some more stuff I learned here. When it came to actual people drafting instead of mock drafting, things started happening that didn't happen in mock drafts. Like, for example, Keenan Allen, his value dropped to more where I think it should be. CJ was able to pick him up for, what was it, $8, right, CJ?
Yeah, $8. Love it.
$8. The mock drafting is different from real people drafting. They're going to look at this differently. So all that mock drafting you've been doing, remember, real people don't draft like the computers. So that's something that you got to keep in mind. Something we also mentioned, after the big 4 quarterbacks became extremely easy to come by.
Yes.
Jameis Winston went to CJ for $2, and as I mentioned, I got Marcus Mariota for $1. So, yeah, you don't need to throw those names out there early. You can wait, and you might end up getting them for pennies on the dollar. And then finally, we may have mentioned this already, between the 3 of us, and as we mentioned, the 3 of us are pretty savvy drafters. There was only one first-round pick out of all 3 of our teams. One. And that was Antonio Brown, who went to CJ. Everybody else, we didn't start picking until second-round talents started coming out. And there's a lot of second-round talents all over both of our teams. All 3 of our teams, excuse me. I mean, if you like we mentioned with Griffin, you look at Griffin's team. 1, 2, 3, 4 of his starters are second-round guys.
Yep.
You know, that's pretty awesome. But again, no first-rounders. Why? Because people overbid on them because they're the names everybody knows.
Yep.
You know, does that need to happen? No. Like I said, CJ got himself an Antonio Brown. That's fantastic, you know. But you don't want to put those names out there early. That's the problem. But most people put those names out there early because they know it. So wait. Don't be afraid to pass on a first-round talent to pick up 2 second-round talents.
Yeah, I agree. I wish there was more time to talk about this, but we are already out of time. So any last things you guys want to add before we sign off?
Get out there and mock, man.
Get out there and mock.
Mock it up.
Practice makes perfect, and holy crap, mock auction drafts, which doesn't sound good because they're so long, and that's why most people leave after like the 4th round. But you try different tactics and plans, because we talk about these strategies in normal snake drafts, but I mean, we talk about like a handful, like up to maybe a dozen different strategies. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of strategies in auction drafts. So, all right, with that, we are going to sign off, and please make sure you guys tune in on Tuesday when we're going to be talking about some post-hype sleepers. Everyone loves sleepers, and these are the guys who are going to fall, and you're going to be able to get for really, really good value, we think. So, guys going way later than we think they should. Remember, if you guys want to play against us in fantasy football this season, go on to iTunes, give us a rating, give us a review, automatically submitted for a chance to win a spot in our listener league. Just make sure you leave an email or a Twitter handle that we can reach you if you are selected, and it helps the show out a ton. If you want to go further, the Patreon is a great place to do that. Get yourself a lot of bonus perks, including those bonus episodes every single week, and you can find our rankings and articles on thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. And like we mentioned before, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever. We come to you guys every Tuesday and Friday through the offseason, through the regular season, or you can follow us on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. Individually, I'm at GPalmerFFF, CJ is at CJ Hickman89, Jason is at JCabrera13. So any parting thoughts before we sign off, guys?
Well, my parting thought is this, man. Look, I think we've been doing phenomenal on YouTube. Keep that up. Like and subscribe, comment.
Yep.
But now I want to boost up Facebook, man. Look, Facebook, let's get it up, man. Let's get some comments going on. Get some questions.
Get some interaction.
Let's get some life going on Facebook, man. Come on, let's do it. I see the likes, baby, but I want to hear you talking to me, man. Talk to me.
Easy way to get a hold of us is on Facebook. Jason, anything for you?
This has been a fantastic time doing the mock drafting, guys. And like I said, please go read the articles on the website, and make sure you let us know what you think. If there's something that we're missing that you'd like to hear us talk about before the season starts, now's the time, man. Get that information into us. Indeed.
And on a little bit of a sadder note, I just wanted to throw out a rest in peace to Chester Bennington, the lead singer for Linkin Park. He was found dead in his home yesterday in the morning. So this is a little bit off topic, but it was suicide. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure everybody knows by this point. But Linkin Park, very influential band, one of the most successful bands of the last 20 years, and it just kind of goes to show you never know what people are going through. And I just wanted to bring this up and for mental health awareness, because it needs more awareness, as someone who has lost people in his life to this disease, and I know and many people are struggling with it today. And just know you're not alone. Seek professional help, and it's not a sign of weakness to seek help. In fact, it's a sign of strength. So I know it's a little bit of a somber note, but it's something I really want to express, that you guys, you're not alone, and you just seek help. People are there for you, and you have more support than you realize. So with that, we are signing off. Everyone, take care. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Tuesday. Bye.